What's up, everybody? So this is going to be episode 1 of a series that I plan on maintaining on the channel called Camp Chat. I'll be filming these videos when I'm out camping around the Pacific Northwest, Oregon, Washington, wherever I end up. And I'm just going to bring my camera along and sometimes sit down and chat with you about something. So episode number 1, today's episode is just simply, I'm going to chat with you about how I got started down the path of just such a love for nature and primitive skills, camping, hunting, fishing, all that. So it had to have started because I actually grew up on a homestead. Me and my family moved to 116 ancestral acres, I guess I'd call it. Some land that had been in the family for a long time. When I was 10 years old. Now we lived, lived on 2.5 acres in Louisiana for several years, and that's when my parents became interested in farming and keeping goats and chickens and all that stuff. So at a certain point when I was 10, they decided to make the leap, and we packed up everything we owned and moved to this acreage in Mississippi. Now we basically had to start from scratch. We had to build a barn, and we bought a mobile home, and we had the pasture cleared. And over the years, let's see, that was 18 years ago now, because I'm 28. Ever since then, we've just expanded every week, every month, every year, and now my parents have a completely fully operational farm. But that's where I grew up, so it would be naive to say that living there under those circumstances wasn't the very beginning of my love for the outdoors and primitive skills and all those things now. The second culprit had to have been me reading The Hobbit, The Lord of the Rings, and The Chronicles of Narnia. It was just stories about kids my age, well, the Chronicles of Narnia anyway, were stories about kids my age finding their path in the world and doing it by themselves. The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, I was attracted to the way the elves lived in Lorien and Lothlorien, and loved the idea of the hobbits living underground. And I think the first book that I read that was specifically to do with survival or living in the wild was a book called My Side of the Mountain. And that's a book about a young kid that goes out and he's got this pet hawk, and he makes a house in a tree, if I'm not mistaken, and builds for himself a little homestead, a primitive homestead. He has a hydro wheel in the creek. He makes himself a stove. He harvests all of his food, and that triggered something in me. And every Christmas after that, for like 4 years, I asked for nothing but books about primitive skills and outdoor skills, hunting, fishing, archery, you name it. So that's how I got started. I was actually homeschooled, so my mom had the wherewithal to actually give me an elective course in high school called Primitive Skills and Native American, Primitive Skills and Native American History, maybe? I forget. But I think for the last 3 years of high school, I actually had a high school elective, and she set landmarks based on how I performed the tasks that I was learning and the books that they were buying me. And from that point on, I didn't need any help. I was just consuming as much information as I could, spending crazy amounts of time in the woods practicing making fires with no help, building shelters, staying out in the woods for a few days at a time, trapping fish, trapping animals. It was on. And thankfully, it did last through college. I had some friends who enjoyed the same type of activities, and we would go to semi-remote areas around South Central Mississippi and kind of mess around with our primitive skills and camping and everything. But unfortunately, I fell off of the wagon towards the end of my stint of college because I got a job, a very demanding job, back in Louisiana. And I did not have the time nor the energy to maintain any of my hobbies. I'm also a fairly avid disc golfer, and when I lived in Mississippi and I was working in industrial construction, no disc golf, no nothing. I worked, I slept, and I hung out with my cousin from time to time that lives down there. But I look back at that time as unfortunate that I let loose of so many of those skills, because it really is something that has to be maintained over the years for you to remain proficient. I'm sorry, it's actually hailing right now. Anyway, so yeah, worked that job for a while, and towards the end of that, I realized that I was going to move to Portland, Oregon. And since I'd spent so much time out of that world, I didn't immediately connect the two. But soon after discovering that I was going to move here, I realized, oh man, this is a perfect opportunity to reintroduce myself to all these concepts and to get out there. Because you guys may or may not know this, but the West has much vaster areas of wilderness than anywhere else in the country. It is unparalleled. Between Oregon and Washington, I mean, half the whole darn state is green. It's national forests, state monuments, federal wildlife areas. It's just unbelievable. So that was 4 years ago, and I've been exploring the areas of the Pacific Northwest for 4 years now. Consider myself a very avid camper. Go as much as I can when it's not absolutely covered in snow or, you know, saturated in rain in the winter months. I'm out here, and it's my main hobby. Also, I mean, I spend a lot of time fishing, and I'll disc golf from time to time. But between trying to start this YouTube channel and disc golf, my other main hobby is just to camp. And I've kind of refocused the last year or two, and I've been trying to exercise those primitive skills again. Now, there's a difference between just a camper that's going to go, you know, bring a propane barbecue pit to a campsite and pay $15 to stay overnight and eat hamburgers and sleep in a camper. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It's fun. It's good. But for me, it's a different experience when you come out and you deprive yourself of at least something, where you have to compensate with the skills and knowledge that you developed. So that's my story, guys. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope it encourages someone to get out there, learn some skills, and practice. Thanks for watching. See you next time.